Hello, I'm Jeremy Young, an attorney with the law firm of Retzel and Andrus and co-chair of the 2016 Ohio High School Mock Trial Case Committee.
And I'm John Hsu, an attorney with the Ohio Environmental Review Appeals Commission and co-chair of the 2016 Case Committee. This year, the Ohio Center for Law-Related Education presents to you the State of Harmony v. Riley Green.
In this year's case, students will evaluate the application of the Fourth Amendment's prohibition against unreasonable seizures to circumstances when a police officer determines that the use of deadly force is necessary. A.J. Bryant, the recipient of deadly force in this case, has attended the popular medieval fair in Buckeye, Harmony for several years and is hoping this year that his or her archer costume is authentic enough to win the costume contest. On the night of July 25th, A.J. plans to attend the fair with a friend, Sam Jones, who lives near the fairgrounds. As they are walking to the fair, the pair stops at a convenience store, and while inside, A.J. causes a disturbance by playing in character with a bow and arrow. While the bow and arrow is a toy, the owner believes that it is a real weapon and that the two teens are robbing the store. As the owner calls the police, the two teens run out of the store. Officer Riley Green is dispatched to the scene in response to a suspected armed robbery, and upon arrival finds Sam and A.J. arguing in the parking lot. During the argument, A.J. is flexing the bow and arrow, leading Officer Green to determine that there is an imminent risk of serious bodily harm, and as a result, shoots A.J. in the shoulder. Officer Green is subsequently charged with felonious assault.
This case will be conducted as a criminal trial, and the proceedings have been bifurcated, so the court will first consider Officer Green's affirmative defense that the use of deadly force was legally justified. In this year's competition, students will only consider Officer Green's affirmative defense and not the underlying criminal charge of felonious assault. As an affirmative defense, Officer Green has the burden of proof and must prove, by preponderance of the evidence, that the use of force was legally justified under the requirements of the Fourth Amendment. The defendant will therefore present arguments and witnesses first, followed by the prosecution.
Riley Green is the defendant in this case and will present arguments first. The defendants will argue that the actions giving rise to the charge of felonious assault were legally justified pursuant to the Fourth Amendment. The defendant will present evidence that the seizure of A.J. Bryant through the use of force was reasonable under the circumstances, given that A.J. was holding what was reasonably perceived by Officer Green to be a real weapon, that A.J. failed to respond to lawful commands of Officer Green, and that A.J. posed an imminent threat to the officer and others at the scene. The defense will bring to court two of the three following witnesses. Officer Riley Green is the defendant in this case. He or she will explain the sequence of events leading to the shooting and will testify to the reasonableness of the actions undertaken, including the decision to use deadly force. Additionally, Officer Green will discuss the Buckeye Police Department policies which led to the belief that using deadly force was justified. Officer Green will testify that prior to the shooting, policy was followed by announcing himself or herself as an officer and that A.J. was ordered to lower the bow and arrow. Officer Green will testify that when A.J. refused to comply, there was no other course of action but to use deadly force. Chris Abbott is the owner of the local Swifties convenience store where the shooting took place and placed the 911 call that led Officer Green being dispatched to the scene. Chris will testify about prior incidents of violence at the store and in the surrounding neighborhood. Chris will also testify about the events leading up to the shooting, including the interaction that A.J. had with a customer, the scene at which Officer Green arrived, and the shooting as perceived from inside the store. Pat Sweeney is an officer trainer at the Police Academy and will serve as an expert witness on peace officer training policies and use of force. This witness will discuss how officers are trained to determine what level of force is necessary and will provide an expert opinion as to the reasonableness of Officer Green's actions based on established policies of the City of Buckeye Police Department.
The prosecution will present evidence to rebut Officer Green's affirmative defense that the use of deadly force was reasonable under the circumstances. Specifically, the prosecution will seek to prove that Officer Green's actions were unreasonable because he or she failed to take sufficient time to determine that the bow and arrow was a toy that posed no imminent threat of serious bodily harm to the officer or to bystanders, did not issue clear and direct warnings before using deadly force, and did not follow the policies of the Buckeye Police Department.
The prosecution will bring to court two of the following three witnesses. A.J. Bryant is a student at the local Trillium High School in Buckeye and is the alleged victim who was shot by Officer Green outside the local Swifties convenience store. A.J. will discuss the history of the Buckeye Medieval Fair and costume contest and describe the archer costume A.J. was wearing. A.J. will also describe the circumstances leading up to the shooting, including Officer Green's actions after arrival at the parking lot. A.J. will further testify that he or she did not know that an officer was present, that the bow and arrow was not aimed at a person, and at no time did Officer Green order that the bow and arrow should be lowered. Sam Jones is also a student at Trillium High School and a friend to A.J. Bryant. Sam has grown up near Swifty's convenience store and was with A.J. on the night of the shooting. Sam will testify about the neighborhood where Swifty's is located. Sam will also describe the events leading up to the shooting and will testify that he or she did not know an officer was present, that A.J. did not pose any threat of harm, and that Officer Green did not issue an order to drop the bow and arrow before A.J. was shot. Justice Smith is a retired police officer and a consultant for local police departments in the state of Harmony. Justice Smith was also present at the parking lot of Swifty's and observed the incident in which A.J. was shot by Officer Green. Justice will testify that Officer Green was not justified in using deadly force. Specifically, Justice will testify that Officer Green violated established police policies and that A.J. did not pose an imminent threat of serious bodily harm to the officer or any bystanders. Justice will analyze the actions taken by Officer Green as they relate to an officer's training and the established policies of the Buckeye Police Department.
Your job is to present the strongest evidence and the best legal arguments that can be offered on one side or another in the hypothetical factual scenario provided in these case materials. The attorneys who have prepared the case materials have based the facts upon actual court decisions with an eye toward framing the case in a manner that is evenly balanced between the arguments of the prosecution and the defendant. You should not rely on any court decisions or other legal information beyond that provided to you in these case materials.
The Ohio Center for Law-Related Education and the Case Committee for the State of Harmony v. Riley Green hope you will find this case challenging and thought-provoking. It is our hope that this case will give you a greater understanding of the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution.
It is also our hope that all who participate in the high school mock trial competition will have a great experience, and we want to take this opportunity to go over with you a few brief competition reminders. It is expected that advisors, coaches, and parents will, at all times, model civil behavior towards and respect for the court and members and supporters of the opposing team. Also, please remember that the competition coordinators and judges are volunteers who have taken time out of their schedules to participate in this program. Understand, as it is in authentic trial situations, that judges may demonstrate different degrees of preparedness and may make rulings at their discretion that the parties may not always agree with or like. We urge the mock trial participants to be flexible and understanding throughout the competition process.
Best wishes and good luck.